So welcome everyone. Thanks very much for joining us. It's a real pleasure to be here. The X Collab project is really it's really something that I support wholeheartedly because the guys are on it. They're doing what I'm doing in my small way locally in Luton, and this, I think our mindsets are very similar. So I'm really happy that I came across this project and joined in. Uh, I am mostly sort of a self-taught multidisciplinary artist, or when I use audio-visual artists, the people from like arts organizations are, what do you mean by that? And there isn't sort of a term, and I think these terms now in the digital age make less and less sense unless you're really only doing printmaking or something. But you know, anyway, I will quickly go through sort of my journey, how I started in different techniques and different stuff that I've been doing over the years. I'll focus a bit more on what I'm doing recently with local artists and by myself. And I really want to open this up to questions and let you steer the sort of second half of this presentation, because there may be some bits that you are more interested in, more subjects, either on the technical side or inspiration or what have you, right? Then put questions in the chat or save them, write them down, save them for the Q&A, and let's start. So I sort of grew out from this sort of vandalism, street art thing. I come from Poland originally. West part of Poland, city called Wrocław. At the beginning, like we having very little sort of funds, we couldn't afford spray cans, so we did stickers, and then I kind of nicked my dad's old Soviet camera, and I started shooting photography, which sort of became my lifelong interest and method of expression. A few years sort of after that, on the sort of first wave of digital projections, projectors and software too being made available, I got involved with a group where we did some, for about a 2 or 3 year period. We ran regular and semi-regular parties, and we were probably the first ones as a collective to deploy projections as a part of the show, rather than just a separate trick or a gimmick. And then sort of around 2006, I moved to the UK with the intention to study graphic design. That never really panned out, because I realized that living in the UK is quite expensive. But I was at this stage, mobile photography became sort of available, affordable, so I swapped to that. A lot of my sort of decisions in terms of which media to use were driven by finance, because everything up until probably 3-4 years ago was self-financed. So that became, mobile photography became sort of more affordable for me then, and I ditched the old Soviet camera. But I also, through the University of Bedfordshire here in Luton, I became sort of involved with printmaking, very interested in that. Did a stint as a sort of stand-in technician for about a semester, and then I started working and doing other things, and I lost access to that. So that led me to sort of thinking, what can I do in terms of printmaking that is not obvious buying a printer, but something more perhaps analog, and something that would be more interesting to explore, which led me to photograms. I had a sort of mentor from the local camera shop who led me sort of on that path. Managed to arrange a very small darkroom just to do sort of contact photograms, and yeah, that was a sort of, again, as a substitute to doing screen printing. So I think there is all right. Then probably around 2014, I got more into the digital stuff. I've been working with Adobe and Corel. I don't know if there's anybody here who knows Corel, but that was my weapon of choice rather than Illustrator. Now, sadly, that's discontinued. But yeah, I have a list of arguments why Corel was better than Illustrator in terms of vector graphics. But that sort of led me to exploration at the then growing market of online apps that were available for Android, where there are small bits of software built by enthusiasts for free that created really nice effects when sort of daisy chained. So I would create a pattern, feed it to one app, then another, and arrive at something like this. This image here was actually fed through 4 different sort of free apps on Galaxy S3 then, right? So pretty old phone. Very low maintenance. You didn't need a lot of equipment. And the best thing about this, after a while, other bits of software that allowed sort of automating this became available. So I could churn sort of patterns like that in hundreds, really, within a very short span of time. But the interest in patterns that sort of grew over and over led me to explore more mechanical pattern making tools. So this is an old half electronic typewriter that I took apart and used the bit that sort of makes marks with the ribbon, and that's the sort of result of experiments on paper using that. That's another sort of generative bit. Gradients are back now for a few months, and they sort of keep coming back. That was again sort of generated, but this is my first proper attempt at making generative art in the sense of, or generative images in the sense of programming the colors rather than using the picker. So these were generated by using an app no longer available, I think, where you could upload or provide hex values to the software, and it generated those patterns. The beauty of that software was that it could really generate this on a scale you wanted to, because it was code rather than a raster image. Around that time as well, while I was doing photograms and my cooperation with or the mentorship under the wing of the person from the camera shop developed, I got interested in retrofitting old, damaged, or just decrepit lens kits onto digital cameras, just to get some effects. That started off by me wanting to get to do a close-up photos, but telephoto lens, as some of you may know, that's you probably need to sell your liver or your kidney to get a good one like that. So that was again an attempt driven by financial limitations to get those really good close-up shots. I managed to get a telephoto lens for about 50 quid, all manual, mind you, mounted on a DSLR. That's shot from my garden through the sort of set of trees that was the moon. I did a series of different moon close-ups, and turned because that was a DSLR and I could shoot like mad. There's just thousands of pictures that I took, which then led me to think and experiment with making these sort of almost stop motion really video pieces, close-up shots to textile design. Okay, let's
sorry, Jakub.
Go on.
There's a question in the chat for you.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you've seen it. There's a question in the chat for you.
No, sorry. Could you?
I'll read out. So
yeah.
The question is: the work atmospheres looks a lot like Wojciech Fangor's work. I didn't say that right, but we'll ignore that. Was he an influence in your work?
I don't know that name, but having just even recently this year, having looked at that, I follow about 3 or 4 artists that work with gradients like that. It is a popular sort of mode of expression, and sometimes I see those like, oh, I wish I could have I've done this before. I think this the good question kind of borders on on what is considered original. I mean, we cannot be expected to know of every artist that does something, and especially with abstract bits like that, is again gradients. It's so easy to do. There are so many different ways to do it. A layman with an iPhone or a Samsung phone can churn those out in their thousands. I don't know that particular person. Certainly, a lot of abstract artists were a great influence on me, but I wouldn't be able to name a specific person that led me on to believe this. Those works were driven more by the research into the mode of making rather than what was going on or what has been going on in the art world. I have led myself on those wild goose chases way too many times and then that kind of led me to thinking about how, if you think somebody's done this before, then there is very little for us to do left, right? And I don't think that should stop anybody from doing whatever they feel like doing. I hope that answers the question. Sorry. So photography, and then moving image. At that stage, 2014, learning from my experiences at the beginning of the 21st century as a sort of aspiring self-proclaimed VJ, I started putting those short video pieces using live video mixing software. The software that I sort of used most extensively is Resolume, and I've been a fan since early 2000s. From we're at version 7 now. I've kind of known what they've been doing from version 2, and I use some of their software to generate just sort of stop motion. I call them. That's not exactly it, really. I've been told. It seems to me that it is, because it's put together from individual frames. Anyway, that kind of panned out to many different things, which I'll come back to in a minute. Being able to use those telephoto lens that led me to explorations in sort of macro world, so very much close-up shots, and trying to explore the different ways of capturing light, really, because that's vastly different, as some or all of you may know. I had contacts with the fashion world best part of my life, really. My mom is a sort of designer and an educator too in the textile industry. Never really took off that much until around, say, I don't know, 2010, where I thought, why don't I design something, and she put something together. We did a few short versions of sort of one-off products, like those pencil cases that you can see here, or tote bags and clothing on demand, and so on. Again, this allowed me to flex my muscles in new ways. Because that led to experiments. As you can see, this is actually using a scanner to get. I was frustrated I couldn't capture the colors right using the cameras I had and lighting. So those experiments with just a tabletop scanner gave the best color quality as natural as possible, and that led to sort of experiments with just interventions, for the lack of better word. Where if I went somewhere, I had those cubes or different bits made of textiles, and did photography or shot video that led on to sort of other sort of interactions between many different media, and using those different media in different ways. Coming back to patterns and glitch when that exploded, and it's a bit of a sort of lame duck now, but that's actually this piece is I'm quite proud of. That's 2013, I think I started. It took me a while to put it together. These are elements of shipping cards that you can find in distribution centers. They're just sort of postcard-sized cards, and they have the name of the destination of the other depot. I sort of, they're considered, after they're used, they're rubbish. But I really like that they were printed on very cheap printers that generated very nice patterns, these sort of distortion of letters sometimes. This is put together from, I don't remember how many, but probably around 1,000 of scanned cards, and then chopped into small squares. So this is probably, each of those small bits is probably a 3 by 2 centimeters piece cut out from a card, and they are assembled in somewhat haphazard fashion there. This was meant to be a project where I did it more as a demonstration, the first sort of public collaborative project where I wanted to put a big board out in an arts center, and have visitors stick one piece, which would create a sort of 3D sculpture. Never came to fruition, really, but it's still something that I'm keeping on the back burner to deploy when we're back to normal, maybe. Further experiments with video art, this time before GDPR. These were the times. I've managed to convince some people to let me use their portrait photographs to distort them. So it was a short video that I did using probably around 50 different pictures, and again chopped them up and fed them. So coming back, inspirations coming back from the sort of stop motion VJing slash digital world. Following on, I mean, as the power of our portable devices grew, more and more and varied apps became available, especially in the Android environment. This one is a 3D sort of virtual sculpture, if you will, 3D object, one of the few that I built using elements of models that were available. So these were first sort of explorations without any sort of experience with 3D Max or Blender. Then sort of experimenting of these half-built shapes, and just trying to learn the lingo, so to say, how to operate in a 3D space. Next one, which then allowed me to build 3D objects, and I have a friend who has a 3D printer, just a basic one. This here, you can see a small action camera encased in a holder with filter lenses. So this jagged edge thing that's attached with a hairband to the camera is something that I built because I wanted to attach filters and have maybe like a fisheye effect to the action camera. Again, this is something that led from exploring the 3D building apps, and the exploration of those generative patterns. When I got back, since 2019, I've been collaborating with the University of Bedfordshire. Had a sort of informal printing residency there. Those patterns sort of that I generated came back in a series of about 120 prints like that, where I used some of those patterns and overlaid them in a half random really fashion. I mean, I laid one layer of ink and then split those into several batches, laid different colors on top of that to arrive at this sort of, each print is really unique, even though the patterns repeat, because I used maybe about 20 different patterns, and the ink colors too, but they're mixed in terms of the positioning between each other. They give different effects. That was actually got inspired by what I've learned about the beat poets kind of cut-up techniques, which Geissen and Burroughs use. So they used to do, like Dadaists too, they used to have those cut-up games where they cut pieces from the newspapers and assemble those crazy poems. But that, I thought, well, why don't I put that into practice with printmaking? And it really gave a quite varied series because of those different relations between the position between the inks and overlapping of those different textures. I started picking apart the lens kits that I didn't use anymore to extract lenses, just individual lens elements, to be able to build on the 3D printed objects, especially with that sort of camera mount. But that also led to some experiments where I would have printed or cut out different patterns and try to make either still images or video. We did a few pieces with my now wife, where we use several varied sources of light and different layers of transparent sheets with textures on them, for example, or patterns like that, or elements, and we did sort of build those really weird short videos based on that. Video art, I think I've covered that. So generally, that's what I think from around 2014 I started gradually developing more and more the digital lingo and doing more and more video art. At this stage, I also wanted to move into making sounds of my own, because all this time from sort of early 2000 when I started DJing, that was just playing other people's music, which is nice, but there was always that feel that this is not really sort of my own. I bought my first very basic cheap synth around the 2014 mark and started incorporating sounds that I've made with it, then with some field recordings. That kind of develops now into what we're doing, which I'll come back to in just a minute. Transit was my first, I consider my first sort of full-blown video art piece, if you will. It's a sort of stop motion again. I assembled all the frames first, and these are overlaid images from my journeys around the area, and sort of structured a music piece to fit it, which led to my first sort of official big commission with Luton Arts. It's an organization that works locally to make sort of Luton the creative hub, if you will. The commission was just to make a short video, and I've made a video that sort of was an expansion of those of the ideas I explored first in the transit video. That's why I call this In Transit. From a very small commission of £400 that I got in gear, really. I didn't even get the money. They just bought me the equipment that I needed. That went on to being shown 5 times during the span of summer of 2019. There were some festivals and whatnot, like the picture you can see here that was screened on the side of the town hall 3 times during 3 different events. So it kind of grew very unexpectedly, and I think that sort of marked my sort of breaking in the at least the local arts scene. That was an exhibit that I did my sort of photographs in the local mall. That well, we can come back to that. There is a funny story behind it. I got involved with this sort of grassroots artist collaborative project. We're just a series of meetings, really, where we talked about our practice and just a sort of support circle. But that kind of, I got involved with them, and that helped me develop my my workshop, because I thought if I'm getting involved, I'm getting involved full in. So I did some animations for them, some ads, working on a topic that I didn't invent. So that was given to me on a brief like that had really good results, that yielded good results for me, because bound by restrictions imposed by somebody else, I had to find ways to utilize what I do but translate it to what somebody wanted or could understand. Around the end of or middle of 2019, I got together with a group of artists that were then students at the School of Art and Design, and we sort of created this audio-visual exchange Luton, which had a few aims. Number one, we wanted to do collaborative live audio-visual projects. And so first of all, merge the audio and the visual world, which sometimes at least locally, and I think you can relate to, musicians don't really interact that much with visual people unless they're friends, but generally there is not really that much cross contamination between this, and we wanted to bridge that gap and help art students experiment with sounds, with music, based on the premise that all you basically need is your phone or a tablet, and you can find resources to make music for free. The picture that you see here is this sort of our first attempt at involving the public in a live audio-visual show. What we did was, on the right-hand side, you have a picture of actually the three of our team demonstrating of what we want the audience to do, just willing participants, mind you. We thought we'll do this piece where everybody will have their favorite hand gestures photographed, just their silhouettes, like my colleague Misty is having done to her now. And this was a 25-minute show. We captured those photos in about 10, while a part of the team was working on putting these frames together into an animation with effects and whatever else. Me and Misty on the left hand side, we put together a soundtrack, which again was improvised. We had our free apps, we had one sampler, but again, we based on the colors that we got, because the participants could choose the color filter, as well as their hand gesture. We kind of reacted to that a little bit. At the end, we screened the full 1 minute something video to the public, so that we wanted really to do something where the audience could participate and see how it is done, in the hope to encourage them to venture and do their own things. COVID threw a spanner in our works, like it did for everybody. We were meant to have a big version of that, with several artists doing a full sort of video art piece, performing, recording, and members of the audience being these sort of trainees for a day, being able to interact. So, for example, we wanted to have a dance artist, a video maker, somebody who did visuals, and musicians, and each of those core artists would then take one or two members of the audience that would help them deliver their part of the piece, but also be able to learn, ask questions, and just enrich themselves through the experience. That, of course, didn't happen because we planned it for May last year, but that led us on to do stuff online. So if you had an opportunity to explore the AVX Luton Instagram feed, this is what we've been doing since May last year. I was enrolled to help Revolution Arts deliver their digital program, and that was a response to COVID in sort of April, May last year. So they did workshops and arts meetings on Zoom, and I was the sort of technical support for them. That helped me to develop different sort of ways that artists can deliver audio-visual content, just using the basic affordable or available resources. And we are working towards bigger shows. Just last month, we delivered first big show where 5 of us were streaming from our own separate studios, and 3 of us were improvising music, and 1 person was doing visuals. So it was sort of simultaneous jam session, a pretty free form because of the technical restrictions, but it was sort of a build up on what we did before, an expansion of it, and we're looking to do sort of even bigger shows with more live artists. I think that sort of brings me up to now with what I've done, and I've been talking for a while. So I'll open it up to questions.
Oh, Jakub, I was just gonna say, have you got any examples of video you might be able to show? Just a couple videos or?
Yeah.
I think a good place to start would be the piece you submitted for the project, because we only included screenshots
Okay.
in the publication. And that was really the one for me anyway that I was like, wow, like this guy's work's really cool.
Do you want me to talk a little bit about this piece itself?
You're more than welcome.
Man.
Yeah.
Okay, let me find it first. I'm not the most organized person. Okay. Right. While I'm looking for it, sorry, were there some other questions? Okay. The response, or my response to the X Collab or to my partner's work was sort of is an audio visual response. So I was keeping true to what. Oh yeah, that's the one. What I've been working with recently. But I wanted to sort of push the envelope and do a bit more than what I've done perhaps before. The work that you're about to see is a both audio and visual reimagining of Jordan's work. I first fed it through a visual editor, and this sort of generated several layers of that work reimagined into a moving image, and then I fed the image into a sonification software. This is where you turn image into sound. There are several platforms that I found that are just free available, built by university researchers across the world, where you can just use this free of charge. So that generated some samples that I then fed into my sampler, and sort of tried to improvise a soundtrack based on the visual cues to that. So that's the piece. Let me just share the screen. In the interest of keeping this online friendly, I did it in a square. I absolutely hate and detest what social media are doing with those different aspect ratios. But what can you do? So that's the piece. Oh, sorry, I think I need to share the sound. Forgive me, just a moment. Share sound. Okay, so yeah, so that's the piece.